Hey everyone, this is On, and I'm coming to you with this month's Connecting Codes video. And yes, I am back in the van. So I'm shooting from here. We're going to try to get through this as quickly as we can so that the battery on my computer will hold out. In here, very interesting. It's a little warm today, but I'm going to get through it and it's all going to be great and fine. We are looking this month at what's going to be coming up for July. So, lots of things happening in here, and we're really looking at some aspects connected to Trojan horses, we could say that, transitions that are coming up. So I think we're actually going to have a pretty big month coming up in July with everything that's going to be going on. Now, for those that don't know me, I am the author of The Code Journey, and it is a daily guidebook to maneuvering through life on Earth. And what I'm doing with this work is it blends over 50 different modalities, belief systems, practices, integrates them in, and it gives me a chance to go in and tune in to things that are happening pretty much at any point, place, time, things like that, and working with it. And it's kind of like a language for me. I kind of deduce everything into numbers and letters and things like that, and then it translates to a language that I understand, and then I bring it back out and retranslate it back out. So in this video, we're looking at world affairs. I also do I have a regular channel under my name that um, I do just like regular kind of self-help, more videos on it. And it's a blend because this gives us a chance to take a look at what's happening in our world and possible things that are coming up. But then it also gives us a chance to, in the book and the work, to work on ourselves and to work from foresight, to work from understanding what the currents are so we're not getting so caught off guard. We can kind of prepare for things that are coming up, things that are going to be happening, and go from there. So let's get started. I don't want to delay or waste any time because there's quite a bit to get through in here. This month, the overall month energy, we're looking at a lot of things having delays and holds and blocks coming up. And sometimes this can be a good thing, right? Because if it's the corruption and it's people that are not in divine alignment, then that's a good thing that they're getting blocked. That means their plans, their agendas, their attempts to do things are probably not going to go through. The people who are really greedy, the people that are coming from impure intentions, the people that are taking advantage of people in need, all of those types of things. So basically those people in corruption will be doing things, will be getting blocked in the things they're trying to do. We're going to see a lot of rethinking of things going on. So what may happen is that the corruption is going to have to rethink things, but we're probably also going to see those who are trying to get things in order, try to get things in a better position. They may also have to be rethinking things at this time. So they may pull back from things that they're considering doing or need to do temporarily, just to relook at the playing board, we might say, on things and to rethink their strategies. And so we have lots of changes. There's going to be changes needed before we have to move forward. So be patient. This is going to require patience. And I know a lot of people, they want everything happening now. Let us see it. Let it all happen now. But if we don't do it in a reasonable order and fashion, if things don't happen in an order that allows things to actually get to where we want them to get to, then we don't get there. They don't happen. So be patient because there are going to be holds on things. Things that we thought were going to come through may not come through in July. We really want to take a close look and watch the partnerships, the relationships that are going on between people in positions of power. This is going to be a huge thing to see who's teaming up with who. There's going to be a lot of testing going on, a lot of checking things. So I think a lot of relationships are going to get tested. Trump loves to do this. We've seen that many, many times. And he will test people. So he might throw them out in something. He might pretend to turn against them, or they might pretend to turn against him, or whatever. So there's this testing that might be going on. We're also going to see a lot of exposure in the relationships and the partnerships, and partnerships could even be used to bring exposure out on different people. So this can also be an aspect of either bringing good fortune or misfortune. And we're going to see it. So we want to see where the misfortune is coming up, because those are the partnerships that are working in corruption. Those are the partnerships that are attached to that. And the ones that are having good fortune going through, those are the people that are probably in divine alignment. Those are the people that are operating in a way that they need to be operating in, even if we can't see it as that. This is going to be a big month for really focusing on true humanitarian things and helping those that can't help themselves. So we're probably going to see more coming out around assistance going to like the seniors, to veterans, to people possibly on disability. And what I think with part of this is, as you clean up the people who don't belong on the system, who are there illegally, who shouldn't be receiving the help, you're actually going to free up a lot of money, a lot of funds, a lot of opportunities for those people who actually need the help. And I think that's one of the ways that we're going to see it. We may see more things coming up that are connected to animals. We may see more things coming up environmentally during this time. So also looking at that, and we might find out that some of the people that we think are not very environmentally friendly might actually be pretty environmentally friendly. But to recognize that and to see it, we have to get away from just all of the agendas. We have to get away of viewing things from the agenda point of view in things. Now, from the 1st through the 22nd, and this is still in the monthly energy, we have explosion of those that are profiting through the through networks. So we know that a lot of these nonprofit organizations are kind of a money funneling thing, and they just kind of bounce the money from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And so I think we're going to see more exposure coming out on these so-called charities, humanitarian groups, NGOs, different things like that that are going to come up in there. And we're going to see people leaving positions to get out of these networks and to return back to family and values and living their life. Because I think we've got a lot of people sitting on the sort of edge right now that is saying, you know what, I'm done. I just don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't want to play this game. I don't want to be sitting here stressing all the time. I don't want to be a part of what's happening. I don't want to be a part of the corruption. So I think we're going to see a lot of exiting of people going on. And that's going to also cause a redirection. That's also going to cause some rethinking of things going on. We've also going to see a focus on helping people enjoy life more. And I think that people in general, that's where they're going to go. People are rethinking, do I really want to do all of this networking? Do I really want to be doing all this socializing and trying to hit certain status and all of that? Or do I want to get out and enjoy life? Do I want to have time with my family? Those sorts of things. So I think we're going to see a lot of that shifting. We've got victim and abuser patterns coming up in this time. So they're going to surface. And what we'll probably see is the abusers being blocked. And again, this returning of value and worth to the victims. So we're going to probably hear about some real and true and genuine victims and what they're going through. And that's going to open up a lot of things. There's going to be help to those people. Now, that could be, you know, bringing back people who are being held hostage places. That could be a whole variety of different components of people in a victim position being brought back. So we might see some of that, hostages being freed or things like that, if we've got some around, or even with other countries that could be happening. We're also going to see a big reconnection to faith, values, beliefs. People's conscience is really going to get to them. And it's that conscience that is going to create the redirections that we see coming up. So this is going to be a good thing. I think really people coming into, again, I can't do this, I can't keep going down this path anymore, is going to be huge. And that's a great thing to see. A lot of people are going to be realizing and coming into that realization of their own behaviors, addictions, addictive patterns, things that have pulled them away from God and divine source. And again, this is going to be part of what people say, yeah, I think I'm done. I need to step out of all of this. I need to go back to having a life. And that's going to be their focus. So a lot of tests and temptations are going to come up and be used to see where people stand. So don't get too wound up when you see people, doing different things, or you hear Trump saying different things. Don't get too wound up over it, because they're probably tests, and they're probably seeing where people can be tempted. Who really are those strong people out there, and who will just give in if they get a little money thrown their way or some other benefit thrown their way, some drugs, whatever the case is for them, whatever their temptation is, will probably be thrown out there to see if they can resist that temptation. If they can't resist it, they're not strong enough to move forward. With the way things are right now. So this is really going to be weeding out who really are the strong people that are sitting around. We're going to see a lot of the past resurfacing, and that's going to bring out a lot of truth. And this is where we're going to see also the Trojan horse energy being used to sabotage people. So there's this combination of past stuff being brought up. There's going to be this combination, and this is that reminder with the Trojan horse energy, right? That the danger is within. It's not without. So this is where we're probably going to see a lot of exposure coming up in our own country of different things associated with the gangs, with the illegals, with a variety of different components like that. Even within, the close people, we're going to start to see some exposure on those people that might be really close to Trump in there. And so we're going to see this sort of flushing out of the Trojan horses. So again, don't get too wound up, because we got a lot of twists and turns that are going to come in regards to that. It's also going to shine a spotlight of how people have gone into the different organizations and the different agencies and things like that to infiltrate, how they've gone into our three-letter agencies, CIA, FBI, things like that, and how there's been the infiltration into all these different things. So that's going to be a big piece that's going to be surfacing in these first 3 weeks of July here. We see some of the things that are connected, and I've got a lot of things connected from past events that can connect into this time and might play in some way. Lincoln signed the first income tax bill, and Bureau of Internal Revenue was established. The start of the Battle of Gettysburg was initiated during this time period in history. So when we look at that, we can probably see that there may be tax reversals going on, for example. We could see that the internal revenue is abolished during this time. So the IRS might go bye-bye during this time. So I could see where some of this is coming up, being exposed as how things were infiltrated from within and then being taken away and removed. I think that that could be a very good possibility that we see in there, or at least word that that's in motion. A lot of states declared to have the right to be free during this time. It absolved them from the allegiance to British Crown. So this was a lot about freedom. So we'll probably see a lot more coming up about freedom during this month. Congress announced U.S. Constitution was ratified and preparing for a new American government. So again, we could see the things coming out that are saying, hey, we are headed to a new American government right now in the month of July. Either we get word of that, we hear about it initiating, we start getting the rumblings of it, or it is set in motion, with or without it hitting the mainstream news. So that's going to probably be some big stuff. Congress announced the U.S. Constitution. Okay, I just did that. President James Garfield was shot and mortally wounded. He died about 2.5 months later. These are historical things that happen. So we could see maybe another assassination attempt on Trump. That's possible during this month. Or something else showing the exposure on assassinations. going up there. So I think that that's also a possibility. There could be more coming out around the JFK files. There could be more coming out connected with the CIA, the FBI, things like that, and their role in these assassinations. Um, Race riots in St. Louis, Missouri, and many were killed during those riots. They were protesting, saying they were protesting against violence to blacks, and they even did a silent march for that in New York. So I would say let's keep our eyes on St. Louis, New York, things that might come up around race and race being used as a way to initiate riots. I think that's an option that we could see coming up in July. Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act prohibiting discrimination. So again, race discrimination factors coming up. George Washington, my relative, I'm a fifth great niece of George Washington, took command of the Continental Army in at Cambridge, Mass. So we could see a move by Trump, perhaps, to take command of the Army. He is the commander in chief. He has the right to do that. So we could see some things coming out that way. Iran Flight 655 was destroyed over the Persian Gulf after a U.S. Navy ship fired on it and was mistaking it for a fighter flight. So we could again see something else. Is this genuinely an accident, or is it some sort of assassination attempt, some sort of attempt to take something out, prove power, whatever? Declaration of Independence was approved. So what's going to come up around the Declaration of Independence? There's probably going to be something that is connected to that is coming out. The last great buffalo hunt began in North Dakota, and it killed off the buffaloes, what they were doing at that time, and the last free range one was gone. So the buffalo is a huge thing. We may see some more things around ancestral, cultural components. We may see some things come out around the Native Americans in North Dakota. They could be connected to some of the discrimination or race things, or who knows, there could be a variety of things happening, or even just prophecies in that culture being fulfilled or showing up. So that's another component we could see. Congress adopted the Olive Branch Petition in hope of reconciliation with Britain, and King George III refused. So this is very interesting. Could there be components of trying to make some sort of peace with Britain, with the UK, and that is going to be refused again? Definitely a possibility. And I think this is the thing where we want to have peace with these different countries. We can't force them to have peace with us, but at the same time, we have to try, and we can't be ruled by them. So I think this is going to bring up some interesting things. The first rabies vax was given out at this point in history. So it'll be interesting. Maybe there's something that's going to come up around the jabs that, we know have a lot of unfavorable things in them and what's happening. And there could be some connection to the rabies vaccines and what's happening with that. So I think there could be, again, something that shows up that starts to expose things in that area, in that industry around there. President McKinley annexed Hawaii during this time. So maybe we have something coming up connected to Pearl Harbor survivors or things like that might come out. France resistance leader Jean Moulin died after arrest and tortured by the Gestapo. So France might come back into the spotlight. We might see, again, other connections between the whole Gestapo thing and France and different connections there. We have the 14th Amendment was ratified during this time. So I imagine something's going to come out around that 14th Amendment, which has popped up and down at different times. An invasion of Italy began with an attack on Sicily. So I would say we want to keep our eyes open over there. Who's going to try to start a war in that area? Who's going to pick something? I don't think they'll get away with a lot with Melania in office over there, but doesn't mean that they won't try. I'm sure of that. The Bahamas gained their independence during this time. So That's an interesting piece as well. The Battle of Kursk, which was the largest tank battle in history, happened. Um, and that was in Russia. And so Russia and Germany was involved in that. Hitler ordered a ceasefire during that time. So we know Russia's been in the spotlight a lot. Where is Germany going to come into play with that? And we might see something coming up around Germany trying to get involved in something around there. German troops also joined UN and NATO. So it sounds like there could be some stuff that's going to come out around Germany and their UN connections, and maybe exposure even with the UN and the NATO and connections to Hitler, to Gestapo, to um, different other components that might get really interesting. The Congress also enacted the Northwest Ordinance to establish territories into states. So this was the shifting from the territories and moving things in the states. Now, we've heard Trump talk a lot about this, about returning power to the states. And so we might see movement around that. And I could definitely see that, and the importance of states being states and governing themselves a lot. The fall of the Bastille and the start of the French Revolution happened during this time. Riots in England happened. So I think we're going to see some ramping up there in France and England area. An experimental atomic bomb was set off in the New Mexico desert, and it wiped out plant and animal life within 1 mile. So I think this is something we have to be careful of if there's going to be testing of nuclear, atomic weapons, things like that coming out again. There may be some experimental weapons that go off, and that could cause a loss of life, whether that's in the U.S. or some other country. It could be either way. Apollo 2 lunar landing mission began, so we could see something coming up around space missions during this time. John Kennedy Jr. and his wife and sister-in-law had their plane crash during this time, where there could be more, again, coming up around that. We have a couple of things around plane crashes and connections to what could be assassination. So we could definitely see some of those things being brought back up to make the connections of those Trojan horses and the infiltration going on. The Russian Tsar was murdered by the Bolsheviks at that time. So we could see, there could be or not Trump's, there could be attempts towards Putin or, other Russian leaders going on that happen. We also have TWA Flight 800 exploded. Some of you may remember that. It happened 12 minutes after taking off from JFK in New York, and that was headed to France, I believe, if I'm correct on that. So again, another plane thing that happened during this time in history, and another connection to France. So could be something more happening around all of that. Truman signed an executive order determining the line of succession, and this was connected to the 25th Amendment. So here we have the 25th Amendment coming back up into the spotlight. What is going to happen with that? Trump has been talking about that more in recent weeks. So perhaps there's going to be something happening around the 25th. Maybe that's 25th Amendment, that is. And maybe that connects with some of the stuff with Biden and Obama and the auto pen and stuff like that. That could be making some connections with that. Guam seceded into the U.S. By Spain. And so that's another component there. We could see countries maybe coming into the U.S. Trump's talked about that with Canada. He's talked about that with other aspects of countries coming in, Greenland, things like that, becoming a part of the U.S. The bank robber John Dillinger was shot and killed by the FBI. Labeled as public enemy number one. So who is the FBI going to attempt to take out who's labeled as public enemy number one? Who are they labeling as that? So we could see somebody taken out who is considered a public enemy, or we could also, again, see some of the hidden Trojan horse connections that are associated with the FBI. So I think it's going to get interesting in these first 3 weeks of July in here. Now, as we move on and we look at, um, let me get my notes straight here. As we move on and we look at the 23rd through the end of the month, so that last week and a half of the month in there, we'll probably see attempts for riots going on, calls for violence going on by political people trying to divert attention off of their own corruption, deliberate provoking of those who are trying to bring forth the truth and not bending to the corruption. So we're going to see some deliberate trying to, you could call it an insurrection. If they deliberately call for violence against people who are bringing out the truth, and who will not bow to the corruption, we're bordering some pretty dangerous territory there. So I would expect riots to be ramping up that last week and a half there. Again, more tests, temptations, addiction issues coming out during this time. So we're going to see more information coming out around addictions, addictive behaviors, probably the fentanyl and other opioids and things like that that have been brought into the country. We're also going to see who has been selling their soul for inclusiveness, for acceptance into these more so-called elite circles. This is going to be about proving alliances. I think both these riots, these provocations, these testing of different things, they're putting it out there saying they're going to want people to prove. So I think we're going to see a lot of people stepping forward and showing that they're with certain narratives. And these are the people who have already sold out. These are the people who have done crimes. These are the people that are trying to keep their crimes covered up. And again, these are addiction things in many ways, whether it's an addiction to a lifestyle, an addiction to money, addiction to elite circles, whatever it is. So it's going to get very interesting. You'll probably notice it when you watch people, because a lot of times you can notice and see when somebody looks like they're being coerced or forced to say something, or has blackmail over them in there. Now, when we look at the aspects of actions and the actions that we could see coming up, again, this exposure on true and false partnerships, a lot of fleshing out of the Trojan horses. That's going to be the big action for July. It's to flesh out these Trojan horses, to get, to bring forward to the surface and make visible these people who have appeared to be one side, and they're not really that. They're really infiltrators into different things. So we're going to see this infiltration getting fleshed out. So we're probably going to see a lot of rhinos getting called out, people from the Republican Party betrayal being called out, fake people being exposed. So there's going to be a lot of bait and traps. So again, don't get too riled up over some of these things that are happening, because some of it's all about baiting people to find out who is really going to do the work and stand strong, and who really is for the country's values and who is not in here. And we're going to show who are the true connections and the false connections. So very important on this. Our thoughts, where to focus the thoughts, where's the mindset going to be? Well, from the 1st through the 18th, so a little over the first half of the month, basically the first half, a lot of conniving, a lot of justifying lies going on, a lot of deception. So as people get caught in the crimes and the things that they're going to be doing, you're going to hear a lot of them justifying, well, I had to do it because of this, or this was required, or if I didn't do this, it would have led to that. So we're going to see a lot of, in some ways, lies upon lies, and then justifying the lies and the crimes in there. Wise and unwise use of power, that's going to come out. And those people who are using their power wisely are going to have windfalls. They're going to have things come through. They're going to have the successes. Those who are using their power unwisely are going to have some hard falls. And they are going to be, it's like bankrupting somebody. If somebody's misusing their power, they're going to go bankrupt. That type of thing. Um, Also in here, there's going to be successes for those who care and who are integrity. And this is a time where, again, remember when I talked about the redirection at the beginning, that's part of the monthly energy? That's where some of this is going to come in, because they're going to be taking a look at what is working, what isn't working, who is with us, who is not with us, who is working for the country, who isn't working for the country. And that is going to help them know how to redirect or what direction to go forward in. And they may change course. And this is why you hear Trump saying a lot, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he doesn't. I mean, one, are you going to tell media who lies what you're going to do? No, of course not. Second of all, I think with Trump, he really doesn't know. He's just watching the board, and he's got multiple directions he can go, and he's just waiting to see which actions come up before he makes a decision which way he's going to go with things. So I don't think he's necessarily lying about that. I think he's just watching and seeing, and then we'll decide what he's got to do from there. Okay, from the 19th on, so basically the second half of the month, the mindset is going to be about success, recognition, where power, again, is being used wisely, and working from spirit. This is a time where we're going to see a lot of thinking outside of the box, creative solutions coming up. So things that people haven't used or tried or thought of before, that's probably the mindset that's going to be there. It's like, well, these other things have all been tried. Let's try something different. And of course, as we know, if you do the same things over and over again, you're going to get the same results. So if we don't want the same results, we need to do something different. And I think that's what we're going to see in here. There's going to be sharing ways that abundance is happening. So we're going to see more coming out about people getting some ease, some comfort. I think this is probably going to connect to taxes being removed and more word or um, more talk on this, or more things being signed, or more things looking at where can we remove more taxes? Where can we remove more of these things? I think it's going to be connected to that, because when you do that, you give people greater ease. So, for example, we might see property taxes getting removed. And again, a lot of these things are preliminary steps that have to happen before the bigger things can happen. Right? You want those capital gains tax. If some of these um, things end up going through financially, you want the capital gains tax removed. You want property tax being removed. You want, income taxes being removed. You want those things done, because people ought to be able to buy a piece of property and not keep paying taxes on it forever and a day on there. So I think those are going to be some of the things coming up. Also, a lot of humanitarian projects and helping those who are going to struggle. So again, this was also in our energy. So I think we're going to hear some more ideas about helping the people who need the help the most in there. And I think this is going to be a great thing. And again, this can also be some of the reports coming out where Doge was working on things saying, okay, we've freed up all of this money, and we've freed up all these resources. We've cleared the illegals off of the system. So here's what we can start to do for people. We can raise this, we can raise that, we can do this, we can do that. So I think there's going to be some interesting pieces that actually will bring ease for those people who are struggling, genuinely, sincerely need the help. And there are a ton of humanitarian components coming up. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that. Now, the soul self. I love dealing with this even in geopolitical arenas, because the soul self is so important. This is where we really need to keep our heart. This is really where we need to look at, where are we doing things with God? Where are we not doing things with God in there? Regardless of your belief system, you probably have a God or a divine source component. Well, during this time, it's going to call us, especially with the test and the temptations coming up, to lean harder into God and divine source. And again, this is with the truth and the integrity. That's how we lean into God and divine source. And when we do that, we become protected. When people try to sabotage us, we can become protected against agendas. We become in a position that we can actually deal with a lot of things. This is a time of standing up for the underdog. and those who are abused in there. So this is going to be important too. It's going to be very interesting because you do have people like seniors, like veterans, like people like that who have been really being humongously taken advantage of, and who really, when you're on a fixed income, let's face it, like if I went into retirement today, can't quite do it yet, but like in a year and a half, I'm only going to get $930 at this point, based on the numbers now. I will only get $930. Try to live on that, okay? In these days and times, when you look at just the basics, the absolute basics like car insurance, a cell phone, internet, just basic things, it's pretty hard to live on that amount of money for food, gas, the whole works. It's very, very hard, even if you don't do much, even if you live very humbly and very conservatively like I do. It's hard to make it on that. You just barely can cover things. So it never accounts for increases really in things. So I think that we're going to see this standing up. We're going to see some shifts in that direction. The corrupt is going to be they're going to be calling to bully those people who are in truth and integrity. So we still have this spiritual battle going on. And why are they doing that? Because they don't want all their profits and gains taken away. They don't want those things removed. They want to keep profiting, and they don't want somebody who's exposing what they're going to do. So we're going to see that out. We're going to see a lot of hidden things come to the surface during this time, and the corrupt will be exposing themselves. So those who are in truth and integrity, they've got God on their side, so to say. They don't really need to do anything because those corrupt people are going to show who they are, and they are going to expose themselves. And they're going. A big part of when they do this is when they try to cover up their lies, when they try to cover up the manipulation that they've done, the crimes that they've done, when they try to get rid of those people who are in truth and integrity, when they try to push those people out, when they try to sabotage them. Their sabotage attempts, it's all going to backfire on them. So again, don't get too stressed out over some of these things that are happening because they are going to expose themselves in the process. They're desperate, they are in fear, and they don't have God on their side. So those are all things to consider. Then, and that was from the 1st through the 4th, by the way. So just the first few days in the month on that. That we see all that sabotage and those underlying things. And again, what gets exposed in this process of what rises to the surface can also be part of what creates the redirections. New information coming out means you might shift the direction you're taking with things. So that can be a catalyst for that. Now, the 5th on, the attention on financial responsibility and cutting waste. So again, Doge may come more into the spotlight again. Where they're probably going to have more exposure on where there's been a lack of financial responsibility, more waste getting cut, more clearing out of debt. So we could see some of our country's debt actually being paid off during this time. Expose excessive and extravagant spending and working beyond the budget. So again, I mean, there's been people that have been called out on this. Powell was just recently called out for this humongous excessive trip and hotel cost and all of this stuff. There's going to be a lot more coming out with that. And they're going to show what is best for corruption and not for the people. So, when they're doing these cuts, the fights that people are going to put up is going to be, saying, oh, they're destroying our democracy. That's one of their favorite phrases. Well, no, they're destroying their democracy, not the people's democracy. And they are unhappy because they're losing their resources to do what they want to do. And those resources are going to be put back to the people. We have to transmute the past during this time. This is part of the spiritual processes. This is a big time for clearing karma. We could see a lot of deaths and accidents during this time that are done to protect the corruption. We've already seen that. We've already seen that Tim Walsh has been called out for being behind the murder of some people in there. But new chapters coming up transitions to new financial system, perhaps, or again, freeing ourselves from some of the debt, moving towards a new government system of some sort. I think all of these things are possible and part of this transition. And again, it's going to require people thinking outside of the box in order to make these things happen. And I think that that's where a lot of this component is, and it's a lot of what is going to be involved in clearing karma is going to be this component of um, doing things differently. And it's going to be about clearing some of these past things that happened. So, again, I think that really brings the spotlight back on some of the things I mentioned earlier about the past things that are resurfacing and connected. So, again, very likely we could see the feds, the internal revenue gone during this time, or at least the first steps taken in that direction. So keep your eyes open, keep your eyes peeled on things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the video, share it out. Check over on my website, check that out, compassioncodes.com. And I am done writing the 2026 book already. I look forward to releasing that in around the middle of August. And just down to the last parts of proofreading and then setting it up in the platforms and all of that. So that will be coming soon. I'll keep you posted on that. I'm excited to have that out. And in the meantime, I'm going to get out and enjoy nature a little bit. I so love it getting my walks here and so happy to do this. But definitely check it out and go back and watch this because I think you'll find this interesting from time to time to pick up these different pieces and to see how these things actually end up playing out. Take care, stay safe, and have a great July, everybody. Keep your eyes open, but don't let them get to you.